thank you all so much for being here. Congratulations on such a fun and original movie. Whenever I have people as accomplished as any of you, I actually love to go back to the beginning and ask, what was your first job in this business? The first time you thought you could call yourself a writer or an actor, or where did it all begin? And I think all of you kind of started young, so this should be interesting.
Yeah, so the first real job that I had was actually an acting job where I met Luke for the first time. It was on a Scott-free production, a Ridley Scott independent film, and it was called Phoenix Forgotten, keyword forgotten, based on the face you just made. I don't know that anybody saw it. But yeah, we met on set doing that. Before that, I was simultaneously at USC. I was interning at a production company, and yeah.
Interning, like being the coffee runner, all that stuff?
Yeah, coffee runner and doing script coverage.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love that the two, you're equally qualified to decide what projects move forward and make coffee.
I think that's how Hollywood runs, yeah.
For you? Oops.
I'm going to go for a deeper cut. I think it was my parents had one of those classic divorces that turned me into an attention hound. And in the late 7th grade, early 8th grade, it was a dramatic time, I did a play called Sleeping Walter. I was an actor. I played Walter. And it created a disease inside of me that continues even now, and that's why you guys are here. But yeah, no, I think that was the beginning. I'm very proud to say my first job, I moved to LA as a degenerate and lived in a basement in Pasadena, and I went to a little acting school, and then I managed to get a manager, and I did a tiny bit in Hail Caesar, the Coen Brothers movie. I'm a character named Peanut. I show up on a bike.
Okay.
And that was the cool beginning of my career. But I would like to credit
my favorite character, actually.
I mean, starting with a Coen Brothers film is pretty tough to beat.
I was pretty stoked about it. I won't lie. I'm still pretty stoked about it. But,
Patrick, for you?
I think my first gig was a Certs commercial when I was 19 years old, and then actual acting gig was a couple of films I went to South Africa to do with Oliver Reed and Eartha Kitt.
What?
And yeah, they're absolutely horrible. I'm the worst thing in them. You'll never be able to watch them unless you have a VHS player, so sorry. But yeah, it was a remarkable experience. I saw Oliver Reed's penis. He had a tattoo on it, which he showed me. The fourth night, his wife Josephine was there, and she told him to put that little thing away. But she was 24, he was 49. He met her when she was 16. They went on a cruise. Yeah. Interesting experience. But in this film, I was actually sold into the white slave. I was the only white slave because I was a trader in the colonies. And so my job as the only white slave was to get all of the slaves to revolt, making, in a slave movie, a white man the hero.
This is your next movie, I think. If you can readapt this for the big screen.
I'm guessing there were no intimacy coordinators on set back then. My first job was with my twin brother, and we were in a diaper commercial where all we had to do was shit and cry. And I like to think that was my best role. No, yeah, that was at 8 months old.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
What's the first job you remember?
What's the first what?
The first job you remember, unless you remember the diaper commercial.
I remember bits and pieces. My brother and I did a show called Grace Under Fire with Brett Butler, and we played a baby in that. Yeah. Did you do that? Are you telling me we've worked together before?
I just did one episode. That was it, yeah.
That's crazy. Yeah. Look at us, old friends.
We've been working together for, 30 years now, I guess.
Well, I actually do want to start at the beginning with Justin and Luke, because this is such a unique and original idea. What was sort of the genesis of the project? Where did the idea of a modern-day duel come from?
So I think the idea and how it came about, it's important to know where we were and kind of what was going on. So I was writing for the morning show at the time, and the showrunner was able to put up one person each year to sponsor for a writing competition, and she asked if I wanted to do that. And I was very excited and said yes. And she said, you could write it by yourself, you could write it with somebody. And Luke and I had stayed friends ever since Phoenix Forgotten, and we'd been drinking buddies, and just through our conversations, I was like, at some point we should write something together. And I thought this was a perfect opportunity to try that out. And I ended up giving him a call because COVID had started and we got the 2-week lockdown, and then that continued to extend, obviously. And I was living by myself in Venice, and he was living by himself in West Hollywood. His roommate had just moved to Puerto Rico, so we had an extra room. And I was like, hey, could I come over? We do this for 5 days and see what happens. And I show up with a 6-pack of beer and some cigarettes. I didn't realize he had just quit both 2 weeks before.
It was the restoration of my faith in God. I was like, oh, I knew I wasn't supposed to be doing this.
And I show up, and we attempt to do this thing over the course of a few days, and I ended up moving in for 6 months.
Wow.
Yeah. I don't know if you ever technically invited me for that length of time, but we just kept writing together, and one of the things that we wrote was the Duel. And it was a lot of late nights, a lot of watching films. I had a friend group that went through something similar, not all the way to dueling, but there was an adjacent friend group that had gone through best friends and infidelity in a similar situation. And Luke was on. Someone was on speaker who was near the situation socially, and they had explained their own frustration with what had happened, and just you could hear it in their voice, just going, something has to be done.
Something
this
has
is.
to be done.
I mean,
Which,
he's
if
just.
You guys don't remember from the movie is one of my favorite lines for why the movie exists. Because it's like, God, something. And him on the phone when we were outside of a liquor store was so lovely because he was so upset for his buddies, and that was what I think, at least for me, definitely sparked the movie as like a giant, like, because we heard his outrage, and it wasn't his situation. It wasn't. It was someone else's, but he was just so, because the sad truth is the Woody in the story is just, he's in an apartment, there's a giant global plague that might be ending the world, and his girlfriend and his best friend are now in love. And he's not invited to the secret parties that shouldn't be happening but are happening. And he's now just waiting for the end of everything. And that kind of prompted the what could
And
he
that
do?
screamed comedy to you?
Exactly.
I think there's always something deeply funny in anything deeply sad. I think, yeah.
It's a fine line. Dylan, I'm curious how you became aware of this project and what interested you, on coming on board, not just to play Colin, but to executive produce.
So it starts, I want to say, gosh, how many years ago was Banana Split, Luke? We did,
17?
Yeah, 17. I don't think 17. Please tell me that's not true.
Yeah, 2017, yeah.
Oh, 2017.
Oh, 2017.
I thought he meant
God.
17. I was like, Jesus Christ. Holy shit, sorry, I just cried. So we did a movie called Banana Split, directed by Hannah Marks, a long time ago, that's all I'm going to say. And we played best friends in the movie. And when we started working on that project, we realized, and this happens often in the industry, we realized that through either good casting or the universe, we were pretty good friends on that set. So we just kept in touch, and a lot of our friendship was based around kind of historical oddities and weird facts and like real-time strategy games. So we just kept in touch.
We go to bars and drink beer like normal people as well. We're not just
we do drink beer
reenactments,
too, but we do talk about that stuff while drinking beer. So we were friends for years after that, and when he started writing with Justin and they finished the script, he hits me up and says, hey, I just finished writing this thing. I'd love your perspective on it and your notes. And I said, okay. So I sat down and I started reading it like 5 minutes after that because I was free that day, and I couldn't put it down. It was one of those scripts that was, my judge of a good script generally is like if it kind of bursts off the page and you don't feel inclined to put it down. And this was one of those scripts. And so I finally, when I finished it, I called him right back and I said, hey, I finished the script. I want to meet right now. And he was like, okay, well, Justin and I are going to Dan Tana's to eat chicken parmesan. Do you want to meet over there? And I was like, yeah, let's go. So I met up over there, and I told them, I was like, guys, I really love this script. I want to help you get it made any way possible. How do we do it? And that was really the start of it all. At that time, I don't even think you guys really wanted to direct it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No, the directing thing happened it was directly his fault.
Yes.
Was Pat,
He said the
Phil's fault.
words out loud. why don't you guys just direct it? And he managed to say that when a certain amount of bourbon had been imbibed, and as two guys that had never directed anything, not even a music video or any of the things you should probably do to prep yourselves for directing a feature film, we went, makes a lot of sense.
Excellent idea.
It was actually,
idea.
it was
We should
my
do
little
that.
form of security because you guys being first-time directors and me potentially being a first-time executive producer, like I would take none of the flack, right? Like you guys would take all the hits and I would just be like, well, I tried to tell them.
Patrick, how did you come to be involved in the project, and what drew you to this very peculiar character? I'm wondering if he was that peculiar on the page, or you even made him weirder.
Real quickly before that, Oliver Reed had a tattoo on his penis. And I think I admitted that. And it sounded like I just said, Oliver Reed showed me his penis, and it's for what reason, but he had a tattoo. I want to clear that up.
But still, for what reason?
Did you ask?
He just he decided to show it to me. But then we went to a restaurant, and there was the kid Herbert Lom were there, and he pulled it out in a restaurant. And at that point, I realized he'll just show this to anybody. I no longer felt special. I read this script.
You were trying to make the story seem less weird, and you just made it even weirder.
Those were weird days, strange days. I read the script, and I thought it was just fantastic. And then I met Justin and Luke on we had a Zoom meeting, and I guess it was like I was trying to sell myself. I was like, you already got the job. I love this, and I'm so excited to work with you guys. I gotten word, from our agent, my agent. I think we were at the same agency at the time, right? Correct, UTA, right?
You and Dill, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, me and Dylan, okay. And they said, these guys are amazing, and they're going to have a huge future. I go, I know, I love this thing. And I loved Christoph, and I always loved the idea to do something different, and I saw him as being somewhat serious, a little bit goofy perhaps, and I liked his position in all of it, and being the mentor, and sort of at the same time, one of the devils in this film that help enable them and guide them down this tragic road. But it seemed to have so many different, what I like about this film is it does play on different levels, and I don't think anything's just one thing. And so it's a comedy, it's a dark comedy, it's a tragedy, it's a love story, it's heartbreaking. I love the cut in the ending, and going back after the duel and not knowing what happened, and being there for that night. And I just think that these two guys are real craftsmen and amazing filmmakers, and it was a pleasure to work with them. It was a pleasure to work with Dylan, who's such a fine actor. And I really, it's a blessing for me because things fall into my laps. I'm a horrible audition. I never get gigs on meetings.
I hear this so much.
Fortunately, things come my way, and then I'm very thankful. Yeah.
You had to have auditioned well at one time, though, to get the initial jobs.
Well, every now and then something accidentally happens in the room, and I get a gig. But then I found primarily work begets work, and I end up working a lot of times with the same people, So,
Same there, bro.
yeah.
I think we'd be remiss if we just didn't take this opportunity, and if I could just say to all of you guys here and to you too, we're so immensely grateful. It's so insane that you guys came out tonight, and Patrick Warburton is a fucking superstar. Dylan Sprouse is a fucking superstar.
I do wanna say
And this
if
is
anybody
one of the coolest
was-
moments of my life, so thank you all for being here.
Thank you guys very much. If anyone was recording during the part where Patrick was saying really nice things about it, will you send that to me?
That would be excellent.
Unfortunately, I only recorded the stuff about Oliver Reed's penis.
It's going to be our
Too
whole
much
review,
footage.
the whole article.
It kind of cut off after that. It's interesting, though, because in writing and then shooting this film, you actually seem to know a lot about the history of dueling. Can you talk about the research you put into not just the script, but also the actors, preparing for these roles?
Sure. I think up front, Luke, Dylan, and I have all part of what we bonded over as friends is all of us are history nerds in some capacity. I'm not going to have the audacity to say that we know all that much, but we do have an interest. And when we first started writing the film, just the idea of dueling and two modern guys dueling it's such a fun, just dramatic function for two modern people to want to do something like this, because it was so normalized for so long, and different cultures across the world, men have been doing this, and with different traditions and different rules. One of the things that's cool about the code Duello is that's just the Irish code that Christoph particularly likes. But each country had kind of their own code and their own way of doing things. But even in American history, I mean, Andrew Jackson pretty much didn't travel without having at least 20 flintlocks with him at all times. And part of the reason for that is his wife didn't get a proper annulment of her marriage to the previous guy because he deserted and he went off. So she was never able to get a proper divorce. And so people would often insult her. And at the drop of a hat, he was ready to challenge someone to an affair of honor right then and there. He actually went through the majority of all of his...
That's what love really is, by the way?
Yeah, he's ready to go.
Outside.
Yeah. He, before becoming president, he was in a duel with a guy who had insulted his wife, and he was shot in the chest.
Oh, geez.
And he chose not to fire immediately at the same time as the other guy. So he let the other guy fire first, and he took the shot to the chest. And then he re-aimed and he shot the guy in the head and killed him. And he survived. Yeah, he survived.
We want to be very clear. No one is encouraging dueling.
We're just telling the cool story.
It's really cool.
That is from before.
Yes.
This is now. Before was before. Now is now. We're not doing that anymore. Okay.
He survived, and he had a piece of lead in his chest for the rest of his life.
Wow.
And people think it may have made him go crazy.
You know about the Abraham Lincoln one, right?
Yeah, but you
that
go for
one's
it.
crazy. So Abe Lincoln, like for his time, was a big guy, right? He was a very tall man. I think he was 6'3", 6'4", which at that point in time is a giant. And he was quite a strong guy too. So on top of being tall and strong, he was the most powerful man in the country at that particular time. Someone had insulted him. He was a pretty fine guy with it. He insulted him back. And as the story goes, the man challenged Abe to a duel, forgetting that Abe got to choose the weapons, if that was the case. So Abe said, two-handed bastard swords. And the duelist agreed. But allegedly, on the day that they showed up, which was at the butt crack of dawn, 6 a.m., Abe Lincoln, with no shoes, no shirt, just overalls, carrying a two-handed bastard sword, was enough to frighten the man away, and he apologized to him on the spot. And that was the only recorded attempted duel at Abraham Lincoln.
So this is what it's like if you go to a bar with us.
Yeah.
Karaoke night happens inside, outside. Abe Lincoln has a bastard sword, and he's in overalls.
That's amazing.
So sick.
I'll tell you right now, John Wilkes Booth is my favorite voiceover artist. I know we think of him as just an actor, but not in cartoons, obviously, but in puppet shows. There's no actual recording of his voice because they didn't have anything like that. They had that cylinder wax thing that you would turn. I forget what that's called. I'm not here to give a history lesson. He's my favorite voiceover artist.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, Patrick, because he's actually one of my legitimate ancestors. We can trace our legit, yeah.
John Wilkes Booth?
Yeah, so the joke Cole and I tell to people is that we come from a long line of actors.
Wow.
All of our family's houses got burned and stoned and everything down south.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Again, this is your next movie. This and Abraham Lincoln stories.
I don't want to play
Dylan
John
playing
Wilkes.
John Wilkes Booth? Or,
Yes.
Yeah.
Have you ever been
Six
approached to play
sentences
John Wilkes Booth?
I have not. I want to play him like you can really relate to him, like you can, he's really tortured, but he's a good guy.
Pat, you're obviously Abe Lincoln. Let's get the show on the road.
Well, you
Yeah,
guys right here
Patty's Abe
first.
Lincoln.
This is what's happening now.
Yeah.
Get yourself a stovepipe Pat. It'll be great.
I think you could pull it off.
Yeah.
We've
got the brow
derailed
for it.
this conversation. I'm sorry.
We need you now.
Mary Todd, clearly. Patrick, I am curious because, again, this character is so specific. Is he based on or inspired by anyone you know?
I wouldn't say that I based him, or he was inspired by anyone I know personally. Every now and then you're not really exactly sure what sort of informs the minutia and whatever it is, the colors of a character. I just felt like he was really on the page, and that was what inspired me.
I would think one of the hardest things about making a movie like this, aside from locations and actors, is not laughing and ruining takes. I don't know if there was any improvising or if there was a lot of laughter on set. What was sort of the atmosphere like, and who broke the most?
We probably broke the most in Video Village, yeah. Particularly when Patrick was improvising as Christoph, because one of the greatest things of working with Patrick is once you understand his voice, because he can make almost anything funny.
Yeah.
Writing and giving notes for improv, it's like writing on steroids. So we just get to, we can come up with stuff and come up with some lines, and we know that he's going to nail the timing. There's so many scenes with also directing. You and Ronald was such a funny dynamic. Ronald Gutman, who plays Rodolfo, is a fantastic Broadway actor. And the first time that he showed up on set, it was his first day was the pig scene. And he was up in his trailer. So we shot the pig scene in the catacombs.
It's pouring rain.
Yeah, it's pouring rain. We're underground. We have a 400-pound pig underground. And this is the day that SAG Chicago decides to visit, by the way, to make sure we're running everything correctly. We're very stressed. I go up to meet Ronald, and before he even says his name, he's immediately trying on different glasses. He's like, I think this is Rodolfo, but maybe this is Rodolfo. What do we think? Da-da-da. And he's running through his character backstory, and it happened that he got handed the wrong sides for that day. And this is obviously a huge scene. It's one of his biggest scenes in the movie. So he's down there, and we're walking through the scene, and we realize that he has the wrong sides, and he's like, this is not what I prepped for. And we're like, oh my gosh, we're already dealing with the pig, and now we're stressed about what's going on with Ronald. And he ends up looking at us, and he's like, this is impossible, I can't do this, like, I don't know what to do. And we go, okay, what do you need? What do you need? We'll give you literally whatever. Like, you need 3-4 hours to go prep this stuff. And he looks at us like we're insane. He goes, give me 30 minutes. And he
literally walked with an umbrella. I watched it.
Yeah.
He walked with an umbrella, smoking an American Spirit cigarette. In the rain. He didn't have the sides. I don't know how he was memorizing, but he did it. It was very, very good stuff. It was very, very good stuff. I watched it like a person watching witchcraft.
And that's
I just was doing this. I don't know if he is memorizing.
and that scene is so compelling.
He does an excellent job.
It's a very compelling scene.
Excellent job.
When him and Patrick are in the same space, there is this glorious thing that happens on screen, but also happened in real life, which was, and Patrick can talk more about this, but like the very, very different people.
Very.
And yet,
I'll say.
and yet their charisma together was, I'm telling you, it's very rare when you work in this business that the crew are pissing themselves. We had people, it was getting unprofessional. If they just entered the frame, people were going like, oh my God. Because it worked. It just was so fun.
Yeah, their
it was
dynamic
it was
was so
probably
fun
my
together.
favorite memories are them together. It was, no offense, Dylan. I love you very much.
Man, fuck this. I'm out of here.
Was that chemistry pretty instantaneous for you, Patrick?
Yeah, listen, I loved working with him. He's a very, very, he's professional, and it was interesting because on one of the very first days when we had this scene, we were walking with Denny and Hart. And he wasn't really clear on what their process was, and they were just fucking around with each other. But they're fuck ups, and this was literally part of their preparation. But he didn't understand that really. He just thought that they were fuck offs, and got a bit irate, and we got grounded again, and. I remember just a lot of looks between, Denny and Hart, like, Jesus Christ, we're getting berated here. But it's, very different processes. And in essence, the same process. I just don't think he understood this is how these two cats, work, and this is their dynamic,
He was an actor who you'd sometimes see him standing over crew who are moving sandbags, and he would be talking to them about Stella Adler, and I get to see they're nodding, and he loves acting, and he's a phenomenal actor.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, he every moment on set.
I do love the chemistry between the core four with Denny and Hart and Callan and yourself. Did you know each other at all? Did that also develop pretty naturally?
I had met Callan a few times through Luke. Knew enough to know that I like him. And Hart was a longtime friend of mine at that point. Denny was the only person that I hadn't met going in, and now we're damn near best friends. I mean, I see each and every one of those guys, I think, once a week, 2 times a week still, since we shot this movie. I really do think that part of the reason we were bonded so well during that time, and the chemistry does play off. Which, first off, I want to say as an aside, I love when actors talk about chemistry a lot, because sometimes they try to explain it like it's such a difficult thing to attain. It really shouldn't ever be. It's not like this great science that needs to be deduced. It's if you are friendly with each other and you like it and you empathize with a human being, chemistry will come naturally. Our chemistry, though, came from the fact that these two decided, for the safety of the filming, that we would all live together in the same house for a month and a half, and essentially what was a frat house. But I think that was a really clever way of bonding us very quickly, to make it seem like we had these genuine lifelong friendships, and it worked. It definitely worked. I still think it's strange that Callan can eat a family-sized portion of chicken bolognese to himself every night. That weirds me out, because he's so thin.
Yep.
But, dude, like a 6-person thing, he can just chow down. I'm so jealous of that. I'm going to duel him again, actually.
Living with these other 3 guys, who is the messiest?
I'm actually the messiest. Okay. I am far and away the messiest. But it's just with my clothes. I think that once they're dirty, they should stay on the ground. They don't go anywhere else. Callan was sleeping in the attic to, in his opinion, test if there were ghosts.
No way.
Because he's a skeptic. So he's always trying to see if, he's like, well, they're not going to get me because they're not real. And I'm like, you're still sleeping in a twin-sized bed.
He's testing his theory. He wants to give ghosts the opportunity to hunt him
present?
if they... No.
If a ghost literally walked up to Callan and said, hello, I am a ghost, Callan would go, lies, and go to sleep.
I don't believe you. Denny is a very clean man. He's... First thing he did, and I'm not joking, is he said hello to us, and he got to meet us, and we had a great little banter for about 30 to 40 minutes, and then he, out of his backpack, pulled bathtub cleaner and cleaned the bathtub because he knew he was going to take baths a lot. I thought that was strange.
I didn't even know that. That's a new one.
I thought that was very strange.
I don't usually do this, but because people just saw the movie, I just wanted to touch on the ending and get a little spoilery. Did you ever consider a different ending? Or did you always know it had to end this way?
We always wanted the movie to end this way. In terms of considerations, we had people throughout the entire process suggest that we end it any other way. We had more standard suggestions if they realize that what they're doing is stupid and they become friends, or they realize that violence isn't the answer and they go their separate ways. We had some producers suggest that maybe one shoots the other one in the dick because it's a comedy. Another one that they take the flintlock pistols and they use it to shoot their way out of the cartel boss's mansion. And so we had a few different suggestions of how to end it, but no, we didn't consider a different way to end it. We the entire time went, thank you for your idea.
I will say, though, that, and I think this is important, at least, because Callan and I talked about this, too, because we, obviously, knowing you guys so well, we knew it was going to end the way that it was going to end before we even read it. But I think it's important to mention that the idea that the boys could have had a resolution and become friends is not a reality.
Mm-hmm.
There was no reality in which those two could have made up and remained friends. The whole point of the Duel was it was a show of how much they loved each other. And if they didn't do it, they would be potentially alive, but they probably would never speak to each other again. So I think that there's no, actually, weirdly, the happy ending is the ending you saw.
I know what you mean.
But one of the things that I felt that played was that, though throughout it, there always seemed to be elements of hope. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there had to be those. And then, and I thought that was played very, very well throughout the film, where, is this going to resolve? There is hope. And through the time you guys spent together, at the mansion, it was a tease throughout. I felt
certainly. I think that that was part of why I love that character so much, is because I think at least the way I was thinking about it while playing it was the longer they're hanging out together, the more they realize that Colin realizes that he has to do it, number one, because if he does really love his friend, then I think that this is how he shows him that he's, devastated by his own actions, but also further that that's what he cares about most. And so I think it's kind of a bittersweet ending, but there was really no other ending. Getting shot in the dick?
Never.
Could you
sat in a
imagine?
rocking chair in Indiana with a BB gun on my lap like a crazy redneck going, no.
I don't even know.
No, they die. They will die. So help me God, we're going to have an elephant in this movie before they don't die. No. We're the biggest gong in Indiana, and they're going to die. That's what we're doing, and that's what the movie was.
I actually find it a very satisfying ending. I don't know if it could have ended any other way. So, although I would like to see some of these options you discuss. I want to remind everyone this movie hits theaters next week, July 31st. I believe.
Yeah, this Wednesday.
Yeah, please spread the word.
Did any of you
Let
like
everyone
it, by the way?
They stayed.
I was gonna say.
Yeah, trust
Okay,
me.
good. We're going to be outside. You can talk.
Yeah, come
we got
get
some shirts.
There will be shirts in the lobby. Thank
Also,
you all.
other than telling your friends to see it in theaters July 31st, if you have Letterboxd and you review the film, hopefully review it well. Otherwise, forget all of this and keep your phone in your pocket. I assume that you like it, the fact that you stayed here this long. If you hated it and you stayed here this long, then I'm terrified of you.
I'll talk to you outside. I have flintlock pistols in a car.
Yeah.
We can have a conversation.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Join us outside for shirts.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.